What if picky eating isn't the problem, but the actual clue? Welcome to the Livin'Sky podcast, where we uncover the root causes behind picky eating, childhood health challenges, and everything in between. I'm Paulina Livin'Sky, but my friends call me Lena. I'm a mom, a pediatric feeding specialist, a pediatric sleep and development specialist, and a speech-language pathologist. Every week on the show, you'll hear conversations with some of the world's leading experts, along with practical tools to help you better understand your child and create a healthier, happier home. I'm so glad you're here.
Hilda Labrada Gore, also known as Holistic Hilda, is a world traveler, speaker, and educator on a mission to help families reconnect with the simple health principles that have sustained humans for generations. Through her travels with indigenous and traditional cultures around the world, she has uncovered practical ancestral wisdom that is accessible, affordable, and often hiding in plain sight. Today, Hilda teaches mothers and families how to reclaim their energy, vitality, and joy through nourishing foods, connection, sunlight, movement, and the everyday habits that support vibrant health. Hilda, welcome to the Livin'Sky podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Lena. I'm happy to be here.
Oh my gosh, I've been looking forward to this. And I met you at Meatstock back in May. And I just want to say I had such a starstruck moment when I first saw you there. And I was probably like, oh my gosh, that's Hilda. And I don't know if you noticed, because that was probably so creepy. But then it took me like multiple times to come up to you because I felt so starstruck. I was like, it's so cool to see her. You're probably like the biggest celebrity. I was like happy to see there.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. It's so funny. And what's funny to me too, sometimes people will come up to me and they'll say, I feel like you're my best friend. I'm like, I feel like that too, because I'm an extrovert and I'm super friendly. So we're tight, Lena. We're like this now.
Yes, that's right. That's how I feel too. But for anybody who's not familiar with your work yet, can you just share a little bit about yourself and how you first found your way into the ancestral health world?
Okay, it's a great question. So I sometimes like to start before I was born, which is kind of a ways ago now. But the story does start with the fact that I was born with a birth defect. So I was born with a hole in my heart between the lower two ventricles. Basically, it's like blood was backwashing. It wasn't going in the right direction. It wasn't oxygenating properly. Babies born with that condition are called blue babies. So at the time, because again, this was a number of years ago, they couldn't do like in utero, repairs or surgeries or anything like that. It was kind of back in the day. So they monitored me for years as a young kid, Lena, to see, is this hole going to repair itself on its own? Is it going to grow any bigger? How much danger is this child in? But at age 9, I had open heart surgery, which is a really big deal when you're 9 years old. I was actually really nervous. You can only imagine. And they really like sawed me open. Like they put me, under anesthesia, obviously sawed me open, put my body on ice to slow all the mechanisms down, sewed up my heart and put it back in me and put me back together again. And then they said, now you can do whatever you want, because until that time, they were kind of like, you shouldn't overexert yourself. We don't know how the heart will be affected. And so I was kind of a nervous, underconfident, skinny kid. And after the surgery, I was like, okay, the first thing I want to do is thank God, because I really felt like he saved my life before I was even born. But the second thing I wanted to do was never set foot in a hospital again.
Yes.
So it kind of set the trajectory for me to look for ways to shore up my health naturally. Is there a place for allopathic medicine, conventional medicine? 100%. If you're in a car accident or you need some serious surgery, great. I'm not just going to drink a kombucha and hope for the best. But in this case, I was like, what can we do? What can I do to avoid being in that situation again? So I started out as just a professional with the American Council on Exercise, teaching exercise classes, and that was great as far as it went. But then I started getting more and more, taking kind of baby steps into pursuing preventative measures, and they led me back to ancient ways.
Wow. You're so lucky though, because you started so early, but with such profound experience as a child and you remember so much of it. Do you think because it was sort of traumatic, or because
Yes.
I don't know, of the
Yes. It was a little bit traumatic, but I will just say I was in and out of the hospital a lot when they were monitoring me. So I would have x-rays and catheterizations and different procedures as they were back in the day, trying to figure out how can we take care of this. Now they might just be able to do arthroscopic surgery to repair it and leave you the tiniest little scar. But instead I came out with a huge scar on my chest. But also again, this mission or this vision. And so because my dad is from Cuba and my mom is from Mexico, I think it made me realize too, like, hey, like maybe we should be feeding ourselves more traditional foods. Like my dad would have like a half a grapefruit and an egg every morning for breakfast, whereas
Oh,
all my peers and everyone in the neighborhood was having cereal, and low fat milk. I was
oh,
like, of course, I wanted to assimilate. So I was like, oh, maybe I should do what they're doing. But I was also paying attention to
mhm,
how my parents were raising me. Anyway, it was amazing. But it all kind of came together. It coalesced into the ancestral way
mhm.
when I met Sally Fallon Morell from the Weston A. Price Foundation. Like
Ah,
I realized, okay, this woman is not saying that she has the trendiest, hottest diet right now, that you need to count your macros or even go carnivore. God bless every carnivore that I know. But she was saying we need to look to the past for good health today.
mhm,
And I suggest we explore traditional wisdom across many cultures. Now, that said, what I was just telling you, I do love um, the fact that carnivores are eating whole, real food. That must be so nourishing. It has to be. It's so much better than all the packaged processed foods, no doubt
mm,
about it. But I would think the goal is, and I'm curious what you think of this, Lena. I would think
yeah,
the goal would be to be able to eat whatever you want, to be healthy enough that your
exactly.
body can manage. Not, I'm saying, the seed oil laden chips, but I mean that you could have sourdough bread or some ferments and it wouldn't set you back. I
Mhm,
remember talking to Jordan Peterson's daughter, Michaela, at Meatstock, and I was telling her about these supplements because I work with a supplement company that just does whole food, animal based supplements with medicinal plants and herbs. It's called Birthright. And she
mhm,
said, Hilda, I can't have any of that, even if it's mostly animal based with a few herbs. Like she's like, I'm just too sensitive. She said all
right.
she could do was get injections of folic acid or something. I was like, this is crazy. So I
Wow.
think my carnivore friends are on the right track. And I would hope that one day they could have a little sourdough bread with butter.
Oh, me too, especially with butter. Um,
Yes.
but I agree with you. I think health is really about resilience and being able to handle any type of diet. And I think there is a lot of wisdom to be learned from the traditional cultures, like you have been traveling and kind of looking back, because I don't think they're all carnivore either. And they are in perfect health, from what I understand.
But they're in such good health. And, some people accuse me or my friend Mary Reddick of kind of
I love Mary.
idealizing what people call, primitive or indigenous cultures. But we
Mhm,
have both spent time in field research walking
mhm,
alongside traditional people groups. And I'm just thinking of my friends in Ethiopia. And I know Ethiopia is a challenging place to live, but the children are grounding because they're running around barefoot. They literally pointed to trees in some of the tribes. They said to me, this is a tree we turn to when we have yellow fever. This is a tree we get its bark for making a tea when we have malaria. And I was like, oh my gosh, like everything we need is all around us. They're
right.
not eating the Takis and the, Doritos or drinking the energy drinks. They have everything they need at their fingertips. And it's funny because some of these countries we call them developing. But I
Mhm.
think the developed countries need to look to the developing ones to remember where we came from, at least dietarily.
Well, absolutely. Because I mean, I've listened to your interviews and I've listened to Mary's interviews, and I've heard, once another culture gets involved in these traditional cultures, they bring in, for example, polyester shirts, or they'll bring in foods such as corn and things like that. That's when the indigenous cultures, they start to show some kind of disease. And it doesn't mean they're going to go into like a chronic illness right away. But that's when things like fungus show up and things, they start to show some decline. So isn't
Mhm.
that interesting? Um,
Yes, and if I could just mention, I mentioned Sally Fallon Morell of the Weston A. Price Foundation. She is
Mhm.
the author of Nourishing Traditions. Her
Yes.
work and her foundation point to the work of a dentist researcher from the 1930s, Weston A. Price. I don't know how much you and your
Yes.
listeners know about him, but
Mhm.
I find his work fascinating. I read Nutrition and Physical Degeneration. What he did was he traveled the world for like 10 years. He visited 14 different people groups. Basically, Lena, he was looking for the healthiest people on the planet and he
Yes.
found them. And they were people that had no refined or denatured foods in their diet. They were people that were eating what I call the lost diet, local, organic, seasonal, and traditional foods. So
Mhm.
I do my best, and it's not perfect, granted, but I do my best to eat that way because that is the way that my body can best assimilate and take advantage of the nutrients that I'm eating. There's so much I could go on and on about that, but I just think it's
Yeah.
important to eat local, organic, seasonal, traditional foods for the right light information and nutrient absorption for the benefit of the body and your hormones.
Yes, that is life-changing information right here. It is just so important. Because especially because my audience is moms and I specialize in feeding and I work with picky eaters, right? So a lot of the times the parents are stressed because the kids are not eating all the vegetables. They're not eating all the fruits. And they're not really maybe focusing as much on the animal-based products because what we're told is that the more variety of vegetables, the more variety of fruits you're going to eat, then the more vitamins you're going to get. But that's not necessarily true. So I
No.
love when I'm having these conversations with people like you who have visited with those tribes with people who truly are in perfect health to learn like what does it mean to what is the diet that our body needs. So I love
Yes.
that.
Yes, and I do wanna point out, so the Weston A. Price Foundation has, 11 principles that
Mhm.
they have garnered from the work of Dr. Price. They kind of laid it all out in a very simple, accessible way, and I think it's principle number 3 emphasizes Dr. Price's key finding, which is that of nutrient density, and I think that's what you're
Mhm.
getting at. So
Mhm.
Dr. Price took samples of the food from the people in Switzerland and Kenya and Alaska and the South Sea Pacific Islands and the various places he went, including Peru and others, Australia. And he shipped samples back to his lab for analysis. And he found that the indigenous people he met were eating diets that were 10 times as rich in the fat soluble activators or fat soluble vitamins, vitamins A, D, E, and K. And so that was 100 years ago, Lena. All this to say, they were getting more nutritional bang for their buck because they were eating the lost diet. So in the South Sea Pacific Islands, it was focused on seafood, probably. And in Kenya, it was meat and milk and blood. You know, maybe so a little bit of fruit and honey, but as you alluded to, fruit and vegetables are great, but they are not the ones that generally have the nutrient bang for your buck that you need. So really emphasizing those foods like the muscle meat, the organ meats, the egg, the fish, the seafood, and so forth. Those are the ones that are going to give your kids the building blocks they need for their cognitive function, for their overall health, for their immune system support. And I'll tell you a quick little story since you're talking about feeding moms and kids. When Dr. Price went to Peru, he saw some people that were from the highlands, they were from the mountains, and they had come
Mhm.
down to the coast. And he saw that they had gotten fish eggs and they had laid them out to dry in the sun. And he said, "Why are you getting these fish eggs? Like, why did you come to such lengths down to the shore to get these fish eggs to take back up to the mountains?" They said, "To have healthy babies." So they didn't know about omega 3s and all the
Mhm.
reasons we know now why we might want in a prenatal, for example, omega 3s and so forth, and the vitamin A that's found in liver and so forth. But they intuitively knew to
Mhm.
seek out the foods that would nourish baby in utero, that would nourish the mama or the mama to be that wanted to have kids or wanted to conceive, and to nourish, the children as well. So I just think we've kind of lost the plot, as they say, in a way, by
Mhm.
emphasizing or trying to think, oh, we need to get 5 servings of fruits and vegetables. Like those are great, but I see
Mhm.
those as very peripheral, and I see the animal based products as more central.
100%, I agree with you. And also, like when you we talk about seasonality, right? It's so important to have fruits and vegetables in season in your specific region because of the light information and the nutrient density and the freshness and everything else. So I will have some strawberries, but that's when they're growing in the farm. That's 20 minutes away from me. Twice. 2 months out of the year, but I'm not seeking strawberries in December in the supermarket because it's not the same food, right? And I think
No,
we have lost that connection to understand that.
I know, and it's so
Mhm.
enticing. Even Sally Fallon Morell says, "Our world is so small. You can enjoy
Mhm.
pineapple in the winter," and you certainly can. I'm not saying that because I live in DC where no bananas grow, I can never have a banana, but I try to make sure that the lion's share of my diet is from where I am for the very reason you stated. That
Mhm.
light information. I think I interviewed a guy named Dewey Lehman who had studied the work of Dr. Jack Cruz. And of course, I've gotten to talk to Jack as well, but they were saying how we're light eaters. So our body benefits from nutrients that come from the right light information. That's kind of a locational match, so to speak.
Mhm.
When you eat food from a different part of the planet out of season, your body can probably glean some things from it, but we simply don't understand all the mechanisms at hand. What we need to know is that the healthiest people on the planet ate was what was right around them. Because sometimes people say to me, Lena, well, Hilda, you're saying to eat ancestrally. Should I be eating what my ancestors ate if my ancestors were from Scotland, for example? Or should I eat where I'm planted right now? Should I eat what I'm eating in my diet in Chicago? And I would say you're definitely going to probably crave the foods that they eat in Scotland, but I would say eat where you're planted because that's exactly where your body is. Now, do I love, pork because my dad's from Cuba and they eat a lot of pork in Cuba? Yes, absolutely. But again, I try to stick with pasture raised, properly sourced animal meats and products because those are going to be the most beneficial and the most accessible for my body.
And I think it's because of this information being more and more available to us, but also people starting to realize like we're just getting sicker. So people are starting to realize the importance of food, and I think slowly seasonality and the sun and everything else. But I love this conversation because I still think that we're not talking about it enough. But also, I think with meat, and I've heard you talk about this before, of course, the best quality is so important, but if it's too out of reach, any type of animal product or any type of meat is already better for you than eating the standard American diet. I mean, that's a big comparison. Anything I think is better than a standard American diet, but like it's just healthy for you just to have those animal products, even if they're not perfect.
Yes. And I want to say too that when you cook from home, moms,
Mhm,
if you're, like thinking, oh, I can't afford organic, you save money, number one,
mhm.
because you're buying, let's say you buy a whole chicken from an Amish farmer or whatever. So you are going to roast that chicken in the oven. And then you'll have the chicken that night. The next night, you take the last little bits off the chicken of meat, and you could have a taco night with that chicken. And then the next night, you could have a broth from the bones. You can extend your budget dollar that way, but you're also inserting what I call vitamin L. You're inserting love, and the
Mhm.
context in which you feed your family really matters too.
Yes.
Grabbing a pizza or, going through a fast food drive through on the way to soccer practice, I understand it, mama, and I'm not shaming at all, but I
Mhm.
agree with you 100%, Lena, that when you make better choices, you're going to feel better and your
Mhm.
kids are going to thrive better. And it's really worth the investment of time and money. I think you will save even in fewer hospital visits if you nourish your children well. I'll tell you a quick
Yes.
story. One of my kids had so many ear infections when they were like a little baby. It was like, and toddler, I guess. It was in and out and in and out of the hospital. So many ear infections, so much amoxicillin. It was like crazy. I didn't know at the time much except to follow whatever my pediatrician
Right.
recommended. And I was even this close to getting tubes because, if a kid has a lot of ear infections, they're like, oh, just put in tubes. Everybody does it. But
Mhm.
now I know I wasn't giving my child the nutrients that they needed to build their body to avoid getting an infection, nor did I know that there could be natural remedies like, putting a little onion on their feet and putting a sock on it and giving them bone broth and things that could like really shore them up naturally. Why am I having to do course after course after of antibiotics? But
Right.
I wasn't thinking straight back then. So I'm so thankful for shows like yours that kind of redirect moms and show them that they have options.
Yes, and there's always options, and you should always listen to your gut because if you know something's off, why am I giving them so many antibiotics? Maybe there's something to it, right? Maybe there's
Yeah.
different options for sure. And I love that. And I think sometimes moms, doctors have this authority around them, and it's sometimes hard to say no, but it's okay to say no.
You know, these days when your child refuses everything you make and you just want them to have something nourishing, that's when I grab Signals. It's a real food meal replacement shake made with organ meats, minerals, and nutrients that support kids' biology, not just fill them up. It's rich in iron, zinc, and B vitamins, the building blocks for growth, focus, and strong immune systems. And it's great for the gut. And the best part? Nate calls it his ice cream shake. That's how delicious it is. And as a mom, it feels amazing to know he's getting what his body truly needs without the fight. You can learn more at feedyoursignals.com and don't forget to use Lena10 at checkout for 10% off your purchase.
It's okay.
I
Yeah.
know. It's just funny. And sometimes they'll even prescribe antibiotics for the kind of infection that isn't even addressed by antibiotics, like like they just prescribe them willy-nilly. I think Dr. Natasha Campbell McBride says they pass it out like it's candy, they
Yes.
do. And it's just, you're like, okay, because you don't know any different. But as they
Right.
say, know better, do better. And
Yeah.
in some of the tribes I visited, I'm thinking specifically of some tribes along the Omo Valley in Ethiopia. These people had the remedies right at hand. And I do think that good health isn't measured by never getting sick. Yes, your kids are going to get a cold, or you're going to even be, knocked out for a few days with some kind of flu, but your body is resilient and it will build back up. And some
Yes.
doctors that I've talked to, because I've interviewed a lot on the Wise Traditions podcast, they say that every sickness is kind of like a healing protocol that the body has in mind. So if you think, oh gosh, I have a fever, but I still have to work, maybe I should take a Tylenol. What you're doing is you're tamping down a symptom that's an indicator that maybe your body is run down and that you need to rest. And you're just telling the body, shh, be quiet, instead of addressing it and listening to it and resting or having some tea or broth. There are ways in which we try to, I don't know, get the upper hand, I guess, with our
Yeah.
bodies, but our bodies are on our side.
Yeah, I think it's important to listen to our bodies for sure versus just we're just so overstimulated right now with so much noise and it's so hard to listen. But I feel like that's like when your body gets sick, it's a hard stop. It's really a sign that you need to start looking within.
And I get it, especially moms of littles, because I had 4
Yes.
kids in 5 years.
Oh
And
my
so
God.
I understand everybody pawing at you and all the needs that you're trying to meet. And your tendency is to push through, right? And help the
Absolutely.
kid push through. If you're like, I got to get them over to daycare, I got to get them to school. So I better like make it like they don't have a sickness or something. But it's like, no, what if you just said, hey, time out. We're going to listen to your body. I'm going to nourish you. I'm going to nurture you. And is it going to cost in time? Yes. But then you're helping your kid and your kid's body grow in resilience and grow in strength. Even like, I think Dr. Tom Cowan says, even like the chicken pox, he's like, it's actually better to have the chicken pox than to get the shot, because then your body has like overcome that obstacle, which he said was some kind of like milestone that you actually should get it. I think these things are fascinating. So I
Interesting. Yeah.
recommend that moms do their own research, but also do a little
Yes.
listening to their own intuition. And I'll close this little part with this story. When I was in Australia in 2019, I met a few Aboriginal women, and one in particular said to me, Hilda, in our tribe, we have the custom of Didiri, which is a custom of deep listening. And that deep listening leads to a knowing. And I thought,
Mhm.
oh my gosh, I am the first one to say, sometimes I'm more of a human doing than a human being. Like, this is a call for me to be still and to listen, because I may hear exactly what I already know deep in my bones is right to do, whether it's a voice from God or my deepest knowing or intuition or from my ancestors. But if I'm too busy running around and trying to make the world or my family fit into my mold, it's going to be more chaotic and stressful and less peaceful and grounded. So I really recommend for moms, especially even if they're just listening to me, like take it all under advisement and do some deep listening to see what you need to do in your particular situation.
Yes, yes. And that's so profound. Oh my gosh, it gave me chills. We sometimes forget to listen and just sit still and like you said, it's hard for moms sometimes, but even for a few minutes, we're not talking about hours, it's just a few minutes. And the best is probably first thing in the morning during sunrise if you can. It has such profound effects on your health and your well-being, your nervous system regulation. It's amazing.
I'm so glad you mentioned the sun, because that's my favorite. I'm actually thinking about calling my book You on Sunshine because I
Oh.
didn't know, Lena. I didn't know for years. I was a fitness professional. I think I was
Mhm.
certified by the American Council on Exercise, but also the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. So I had all these things, little accolades after my name or whatever. And if I spent 15 minutes outside, that was the most I got on any given day.
Mhm.
Why? Because I
Mhm.
was getting my kids ready for school. I would drop them off. I'd go teach an exercise fitness class. I'd go back and buy groceries. I'd go home. It was just in and out of the car was all the time I got outside. Now I know that the sun nourishes us as much, if not more, than food.
Yes.
2/3 of our mitochondrial energy, and the mitochondria are, of course, those little engines in our cells, 2/3 of their energy comes from sunlight and 1/3 from food. So food is actually a conduit of light. Think of it that way. So
Mhm.
what I recommend now is that moms especially get sunlight, or sunrise, as I call it, before screen rise, because when you get that sunlight in your eyes, it starts this cascade of benefits. Your hormones function better, your metabolism, your energy, your mood. There's so many ways in which the spectrum of early morning sunlight informs your health. And of course, your biological, circadian rhythm is synced up so that you can sleep more profoundly, all the things. Of course, I learned these things from Dr. Jack Kruse and Thaddeus
Oh,
Owen and others who are experts on quantum biology. But some moms say to me, oh, I don't know what to do. I just had a baby. How am I going to get outside? I'm not saying you need to get out at the crack of dawn, though I like to now at my stage. But what you can do is just as soon as you get up, instead of turning to a screen, get
mhm.
outside and, if possible, take your kiddos with you. In
Yeah.
Colombia, South America, it is a practice to expose the infants to sunlight every day for their first 40 days.
That's
I'm going to go
amazing.
back and look at my notes, but I'm pretty sure they told me that they consider that essential for the child's well being. Isn't that interesting?
Yes,
And
but
in
it
our
is.
culture, we're told to avoid the sun. I don't know.
Well, right, I know. Well, first of all, moms don't even have time off work to even be there for 40 days sometimes with the kids, but that's
That's
another
right.
topic.
Yeah.
But I love that so much. It's so important because, like I mentioned, I work with picky eaters, and sun is always part of my conversation with those families because most of our kids, they're overstimulated, they're on the screens. The first thing they do, I just had a consult with the family today, and the first thing the boy does is gets on a screen. And he says that it helps him to regulate himself, which I get because sometimes the familiarity of things and just kind of taking your mind off of things can be helpful. But that's the first thing I told the mom. Like, if you guys can just get outside first thing in the morning instead of getting on that screen, it's going to make such a big difference for him.
Oh,
S-
100%.
yeah.
And did you know, I have a friend that is a trainer and
Mhm.
he uses the continuous glucose monitor.
Yes.
And he ate the exact same meal, one inside and one outside. It was a stack of pancakes. Don't ask me why. But anyway, um, I'm sure it was with maple syrup and maybe
Right.
some kind of wonderful einkorn flour. But the point is, he had a stack of pancakes inside. He had a stack of pancakes the next day outside. Nothing else changed except the environment. And his blood glucose spiked less when he ate
Wow.
outside. So when
Wow.
possible, I would say, mamas, have those picnic dinners
Yeah.
or picnic breakfast or eat outside on a patio, whatever you can do on a screened-in porch to get that natural light to play a part in the digestion and the absorption of nutrients.
Oh, absolutely. It makes such a big difference. And it's exciting for the kids because their nervous system regulates so much by being outside. So they're more willing to try new things. They're more willing to eat more or whatever it is that you have prepared for them. There's so many wins just by going outside. Such an easy swap sometimes, too, that we don't think about, right?
100%,
Mm.
100%. And another thought I have for picky eaters, you might have heard my friend Corey Dunn. Do you know her? She's for Nutrient's Sake on Instagram. She
Yeah.
always says, make sure there's at least one thing on the table that your kid will eat. So
Yes.
you don't want to make a million specific meals because each kid or even your husband might have a different choice that he would make that night for dinner, but just make sure there's at least one thing for everybody. So like if I'm going to have, let's say, a beef stew, make sure that it's over rice, that one of the kids might just want to have the rice with butter on it. Okay, hun, that's what you're choosing, but I would hope there'd be something on the table for everyone. So there's no battleground over the meal, right?
Mhm. I agree. I usually tell the families once the child is ready for it, because some kids, they're so sensitive, they can't even be around a lot of food. But once they are, once we set those boundaries and we have the basics in place, always have like a tapas style dinner because it gives them authority to serve food for their family before maybe they're ready to put things on their plate. But always have something that they like to eat. So it's not so overwhelming. They always have a choice for them, but then just to be around these dishes that you wouldn't normally maybe serve for them. Because I think as parents, sometimes we kind of put our kids in a box to think like they don't eat this, they don't like this, they're not going to try this. And I've been there, I've done that as well. But sometimes our kids will surprise us if they have the opportunity to try different things without us even realizing they will.
That's right. That's right. And you're right. Being outside will give them also maybe that flexibility or they'll feel more regulated to try something new. And yeah, there's so many ways to make sure that they feel secure and happy. That's a challenge though. I remember because one of my kids was so picky. I remember his teacher was like, "You're not sending him enough food." And I was like, "But he's
Hmm.
so careful about what he eats." I didn't know, I didn't know where to go at the
Oh,
time. But I also know you can be kind of wise about things. So that rice I mentioned earlier, I would
mhm.
make that in bone broth. Like
Yeah.
doing what I can to up the nutrient level in content, even in the very little that they have. Like, did you know, you probably have heard of Pluck organ based
Yes.
seasonings?
Mhm.
So I will use Pluck. my son used to like a cinnamon toast for breakfast. So make sure it's
Mhm.
sourdough bread, grass-fed butter, and there's
Right.
a plucked cinnamon that has like brain in it or something. It's like do whatever you can to get the most in them.
Yes, yes. And sometimes it's like the tiniest speck of it at the beginning, and then eventually you add more and more and more as they can tolerate it. I love that.
Yes.
Um, so I wonder, on your travels, you have traveled with so many different tribes. What were the children eating there? Were they eating like separate meals, kids' foods, or simply joining their families in their meals? And what were some of the first foods they were introduced to as babies?
That's a great question. Yeah, my experience in Ethiopia and Ecuador, everywhere I've been, and Peru, is that families eat together. So
Yeah.
number one, they're sharing the meal together, but not just as a nuclear family necessarily. A lot of times in community or extended family,
Mhm.
which is beautiful. And there's definitely no separate kids menu. Everyone's having the same food, which is wonderful because then when the kids get older they'll be like, okay, this is the stew dish that we have every Tuesday or whatever. And it's also often, like I said, the lost diet, but it's also just very nutrient rich. I'm thinking about Mongolia in particular. So I went there in 2022 or 2023 with Mary Ruddick, and I got to be with the Kazakh eagle hunters. So Mongolia, in case you don't know, is between China and Russia, and it's a very sparsely populated nation because it's harsh over there. It's harsh.
Mhm.
It's like a lot of strong climate changes and it can be cold and so forth. So it's very inhospitable. So the people that live there are very rugged and strong because they're often experiencing the elements, which is one ancestral habit I like to point to, like get outside no matter the weather. There's no such thing as bad weather. But also when we were eating, it was a diet focused on meat and fat. Like you couldn't grow a carrot if you tried in some of these conditions. So what they
Yeah.
do is they eat the animals that are eating the hay or whatever stubble is
Mhm.
out there. They'll eat camel and have camel's milk, yak, goat, sheep. It was incredible. I remember sitting around a table and they would have one central platter that we would all share from, kids included.
Mhm.
And the men are responsible, the women cook the food, but the men are responsible for like carving it up. So there was like literally like a bone and they're like taking all the meat off of it, not in a cute, organized way like at Pho de Chow. It was like,
Mhm.
hacking at it and all this stuff. And I remember vividly one of the eagle hunters like opening up the little goat's brain and offering it to me. I ate it. I ate it. I don't usually
Wow.
have it like that. But it's like a lot of meat, a lot of fat and dairy because that's all they have.
Mhm.
They're the ones that I guess gave Dave Asprey the idea of putting butter in coffee or tea because they have
Mhm.
yak butter in their tea. Like it's wild. But the kids
Amazing.
have the most beautiful faces. And this is
Yeah.
one thing Dr. Price found, I will just hasten to mention, that when kids are nourished well in utero for starters, and then as they're growing up, their faces are going to have room for all of their teeth.
Yes.
So these kids in these countries, especially the ones that are well nourished, they don't have to have braces. They don't have to have teeth pulled because
Mm.
there's room for all their teeth because the jaw has been developed enough that it's not crowding, it's not causing a crowding and a malformation that is evidence of undernutrition. And I know no parent means for this to happen, but if you look around, in the United States especially, you'll see a lot of people with very narrow faces. Dr. Price says that demonstrates a lack of nutrition when the kids were in utero because
Mm.
that's when the baby needs the building blocks of ancestral foods like a lot of vitamin A and iron and folate and
Mhm.
magnesium and things that come from like oysters and fish roe and organ meats. And these are not necessarily foods that we would all run to eat. But if there's any mamas expecting right now, I'm like, please do your best to include eggs in your
Yeah.
diet and foods that are really rich in choline and selenium and iodine. And if you're like, gosh, I don't even know, you don't have to know that list of things I just mentioned because the ancient peoples didn't know. They
No.
just had the intuition to eat the real food. So,
Yeah.
and this is another reason you probably know, I mentioned it earlier, but I partner with Birthright because they offer
Mhm.
supplements that are whole food, animal based with medicinal plants and herbs. And it's just, that's their prenatal. It doesn't have like, 500 milligrams of this because there's nothing synthetic. It's just food in the capsules. It's amazing. So I really recommend that.
Fantastic.
But kids can also eat some of these things. Like,
Mhm.
you just have to find a way to, especially to the Western palate, make it palatable. What I do is I buy ground beef from Amish farmers with the organ meats mixed in. So I
Mhm.
would make burgers and
That's good.
meatloaf and spaghetti sauce with the organ meats mixed in. And my family was none the wiser, and my kids were just that much healthier.
Yes, I do the same. We actually just got our cow share from a local farm, and they're able to mix it in for us for the first time. I was so excited when they told us. Yes.
It's so nice because
Perfect.
liver, I've been to a million "here's how you cook liver" workshops. It's still intimidating to me,
Yeah.
honestly. And
Yes.
I do like liver raw, actually, raw and semi-frozen. It tastes great. But once you've cooked it up, if you've overcooked it, it tastes metallic. It's just a lot of
Yes.
stuff. So I'm not
Oh,
saying you have to go out and cook all those things, but if you can, more power to you. But if you
yeah.
can't, like, there are ways to still get these nutrients in your diet.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, which does they don't necessarily have to taste, like you said, like that. It's so easy. And some moms, like I've heard they even open up like the liver capsules and they'll add that to the meat. That's another way, right?
Yes.
You do like a
And I've
birthright
heard I've
capsule.
heard informally that, birthright subscribers, the folks who get these supplements, their kids will just take the pill and chew it and eat it like that. I'm like,
Really? Oh,
yes! I'm like, "What the heck?" I one day we'll come out with a kids formulation. We haven't done that yet, but I just think if they
that'd be
like it already,
amazing.
that shows
Yeah.
that the kid's palate is malleable. Like,
Yes.
I think my
Very.
son, honestly, not to call him out, and hopefully he doesn't listen to this podcast, but I think he was super picky because I gave in. I just always gave him whatever he wanted. I didn't teach him. Why do, like, Alaskan children love fish and, like, all these weird things? It's because they were raised with it? So I'm
Yes.
not saying that's the solution to everything, but I'm pretty sure my friend Christine Muldoon of Nourish the Littles, she says you need to try at least 20 times trying to serve
Yes.
something to a kid before, don't give up after 5 times, like, "Oh, they don't like it." And the kid will even say, "Oh, I don't like that." And then next thing you know, they will like it if it's you don't give up. I don't think you should give up serving them
Yes.
certain things, and definitely in different iterations. Like,
Yes.
not just here's the liver, eat it, but, the liver mixed in things and that sort of thing.
Well, definitely. I always like to talk about food chaining and how we can like slowly change the shape of a food to take on another type of a food. It is
Ah,
so, it's less intimidating to children and the families. And usually that way, for example, you can go from like a specific chicken nugget brand that's the only thing that they'll eat to like a homemade chicken. And you just slowly start to like change the shape of it and the type of it until you get to that piece of chicken you want to serve them. But yeah, don't give up. I think serving about 20 times, sometimes it's only 3 times. But oftentimes what I'll hear is that, parents they get so excited and they'll serve something. Like I heard my child wants to try steak. Let's try it. And then the child doesn't try it. So they're like, well, we're not going to do it again. But yeah,
uh-huh.
just a few times more for them to get the exposure and the opportunity. I think that's so important.
And that's probably why everywhere I've been in the world, the kids aren't, like, turning up their noses at food because they've had it since they were little? So, yeah, they've been exposed to it so much that this is what we eat. I'll never forget sitting on a hillside, again in Australia, with Suzanne
Oh,
Thompson of the Inangai tribe, and she gestured to the area where we were at, and she said, "Hilda, this is our grocery store." And I was like, that's their grocery store, like, right there. Like,
yeah.
it really made a big impact on me. I was like, "Oh, yeah, oh, yeah." So, maybe that would be a thing too. You probably talk about this all the time, Lena, but take the
Mhm.
kids to see your farmer. Take your kids
Yes.
to pick berries. Like, they
Mhm.
might try something new because it's in a new setting and
Yes.
it's suddenly not so foreign anymore. Or they're at
Yes.
a farm camp. I know Joel Salatin has these, at Polyface Farm. It's like, "Oh, I can help plant something and then later I can harvest it and eat it."
Yes, yes. Kids love that. It's fun for them. Make it fun. It doesn't have to be so structured. Like we're sitting down here for this meal. Make it fun. Let them explore. And, kids explore before food gets to the plate. Give them that opportunity, like you said, in a grocery store, on the farm, in your own garden. Have them prep the food, cut it up, whatever it is. So before you put kind of the pressure on them to eat it, I think that can make a big difference for them. For sure.
100%.
And then I wanted to ask you because now you talk about fat quite a bit and you talk about butter. So,
Mhm.
how important is fat in a child's and honestly, the whole family's diet?
Oh my gosh, fat. I don't know why it was maligned for so long, except that
Yes.
I will say this. In the grocery stores, all the big food companies, they care about profit more than your health. They're trying
Mhm.
to put products out that sell. and they're thinking they want it to sell for pennies. So
Mhm.
they know that soybean oil and pea protein and powders and things like that, they cost pennies, compared to full fat butter. So they make these imitation things ostensibly for your health, and they'll even slap a little heart healthy label on there. But the truth is, they want the bottom line. They want to make money off of you. And what you need to do is go back to single, whole, real food ingredient, foods that your parents and grandparents and great grandparents would recognize as food. And so butter was the first change I made, Lena, in my own diet. So I remember hearing from Sally Fallon Morell and getting food from the farmer, but I'm like, I don't even know where to start here. And Sally said, get your fat straight. I was like, oh, okay, get your fat straight. I can do that. So I
Love it.
got rid of the country crock and all the pseudo spreads. My family was so happy. I had no idea that butter tasted better too. So it's good for you. It is replete in the vitamins I was mentioning earlier that are really important for proper cognitive function,
Mhm.
hormonal function, nervous system regulation, like so many things for children and adults. But I would say for children especially,
Yes.
because their little brains are still developing. So their bodies run on fat. So I always say, if you're anxious, you need fat. Brain fog, fat. You want to lose weight, fat. Fatigued, fat. Because
Yeah.
this is what the keto diet is about, by the way. It's like being in
Mhm.
ketosis means your body is running on fat. So what you want to do is put the right fats in. What Dr. Price found is the most nutrient-rich fats are the saturated fats, the very ones we've been told to avoid. I mean,
Right.
things like coconut oil, butter, tallow, lard.
Mm.
These are the natural fats that are nourishing. They're not just like a pseudo food that, might make it easier to cook a steak, No, like
Right.
use a steak fat for goodness sakes. Like it's all meant to work together. And I'll tell you a quick story. I interviewed somebody on the Wise Traditions podcast who lived in Panama near the Nicoya Peninsula. And she had read some book about the blue zones. And she's like, Hilda, I want to meet these centenarians myself. So, and find out if they really are eating like primarily like a vegetarian diet. So she
Right.
went and talked to some and they said, no, of course we would cook in lard and stuff like that. And she's like, why didn't you tell the author of the Blue Zones this? They said, we were embarrassed because we knew what he was looking for. They literally said this because you see what you want to see. Like he went in with a presupposition.
Right, with
These
blinders.
people are, they've got community, they've got plant-based diets. And so they're like, we didn't want to say, but what else would we cook our food in back in the day? They didn't have the yellow, the beautiful yellow bottles that they have on the grocery store shelves. All we had was lard. That's what we cooked in, but they were embarrassed to admit it. Isn't that funny?
Mm.
So
Oh
I
boy.
think we would do well. And we would do well to return to the foods and the fats that nourish best and have traditionally been used. The problem with the seed oils, as they call them, and that's a better name than vegetable oil because I don't know. I mean, besides corn, it's things like rapeseed and soybean and it's just sunflowers. Like that's not really vegetables. Anyway, it's the seed oil is extracted with a very
Mm.
high extrusion process that changes the product so that it's not really understandable to the body. So you don't benefit. If there were any nourishment in there, your body wouldn't benefit from it anyway. Actually,
Mhm.
what it does is it leads to inflammation. The way in which the rancid oils are bottled and packaged and processed. So I think it was Dr. Kate Shanahan who said, literally, it's like oxidative stress in a bottle. Like, so the seed oil hype is for real. But this is what I was going to end with on this section here, Lena, is that people shouldn't just take my word for it. I always say N equals one, meaning experiment on yourself and your family.
Yeah.
Just start using butter instead of country crock or some of the other spreads. I can't believe it's not butter. I can't believe people buy that. But anyway, try experiment on your family and see what happens after just a week or two. You will be surprised at how satiated you'll be. So your cravings may go down, how much more clarity you'll have with your brain function, how much less fatigue because your body wants to run on fat. And yeah, anything that you need. If you're anxious, your nervous system will feel more regulated. Like I'm not making up the hype about butter. It's a real thing and I can testify to it.
Yeah, well, I'm taking your word for it because your memory is amazing. You remember everybody's name. I struggle with that so much. It's so cool.
Oh, I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right for 60 something. I'm nearly going to hit the speed limit soon on the highways here. And I'm really happy about it because it's not just about longevity. It's about
Right.
health span, right? What you want is to be as healthy as you can for as long as possible. And what you choose today, mama, matters for your tomorrow, but also your children's tomorrow. So
Mhm.
give your kids and family and yourself the best foundation you can. I have 6 ancient habits that I always point to for well being,
Yes.
and sustenance or nutrition is one of them because it is undoubtedly one of the strongest pillars for your family's health. And I call it mom's health insurance because, like I said, the more you spend on the food bills, the less you'll spend on the doctor bills. And this is played
Definitely.
out in Europe. People spend more on food and less at the doctor. And in the US, we spend less
Mm.
on food and more at the doctor.
Oh, 100%. I also think European Union kind of has stricter laws around food too. So there is a lot of foods that are not allowed there or chemicals that are not allowed there. And they're not perfect. I mean, there's a lot of things to be said about European Union, but like in terms of I think what's allowed in the food, it's a bit different. But
Absolutely.
I'm originally from Poland. So I was born in Europe and I lived in Spain for a while. So I'm, pretty versed there. I mean, as much as I can be. But we go back every year, and I've also traveled the world. I've been to like 35 different countries, not with ancestral communities though, which I mean, that's incredible to do. I wish to do that one day. But what I notice is that they will put less chemicals in the food, but they put more sugar in it to make it more appealing. That's what I noticed in a lot of the food labels that I've been analyzing in Poland. Like, yes, there may be less ingredients, but the sugar content, I couldn't believe it. Like how much sugar is in yogurt and everything else. I was like, oh my gosh. Like we no matter where we go, if you are eating processed foods, you have to be very conscious about it and read all the labels.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up because when Dr. Price wrote his book, Nutrition and Physical Degeneration, he noted that there were foods that he called the displacing foods of modern commerce. These
Mm.
foods are taking the place of traditional nourishing foods. And
Mhm.
among the foods he identified that were detrimental to the health of the indigenous people was sugar and white flour. So
Mm.
I guess some people call them like the white horses, but like they're really, really damaging. I used to tell my mom, may she rest in peace, I was like, Mom, when you drink a soda, it's not just a zero, it's like a negative. It's stealing from your bone density. Like
Mm.
it's stripping you of things that your body needs. And it's addicting.
Yes.
Like it's so messed up. So yeah, we would do well to make sure we're reading those labels or try your best to buy food without labels. Like the less packaged, the better. And this is one thing Dr. Price noted too. In the healthiest tribes, there were no refined or denatured foods. So they didn't have a lot of canned or packaged or processed
Mm.
food. So do your best, mama, to shop the perimeter of the grocery store or
Yes.
farmers markets. And I want to put in a quick plug for Farm Match. I jokingly say it's like Tinder for farms, but it's definitely a place that you can go to, plug in your address, and they'll help you find farms near you that
Mhm.
deliver or participate in farmers markets or have drop-off points. So you
Yeah.
can nourish your family with foods that don't have a label at all.
Yes, I love that, and it's probably available in almost every I don't know if Farm Much is, but you can always get farm fresh foods in almost every state now. It's
For sure,
amazing.
for sure, for sure.
Yeah.
I was thinking about how I just met Max Kane, the guy who started Farm Match. He was at an event here in DC, and he did it because he was so sick. Let me just say, for anyone who's like, "Oh, I'm too far gone. I have a chronic disease," I'm pretty
Mhm.
sure he had something like chronic Crohn's or something like
Oh,
that was really bad. So he was on disability for life. And then because he started eating whole, real foods, he reversed his diagnosis. He became
it's amazing.
healthy. He contacted the agency in Washington, D.C. and said, I want to get off the, disability list. And they were like, we don't have a mechanism for that because no one has ever reached out to us to ask for
Wow.
that. He's like, no, I want to get off the list. Like, I don't want to take this money anymore. I'm fine. And they were like, we don't have a way to do it. Like, isn't that crazy? So
That's crazy.
nobody is ever too far gone, in my opinion. You can
I
nourish
agree.
yourself in such a way to help your body turn around. I think Joshua Rosenthal, the head of the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, used to always say, given half a chance, the body will heal itself. So give it
Mm.
half a chance with the right food.
Yes, absolutely, and the sun, nature.
Yes.
So let's
Ton
talk
of
about your
butter.
course. Yes. Let's talk about the Mother Code because that's your course that you have created, and you talk about the 6 habits for endless energy. Can you walk us through? I know you spoke about a few of them, but can you walk us through them? Because I
Yes.
think that's important.
Thank you for asking. I mean, I have to laugh, Lena, because I'm like the mother code. Why did I call it that? It sounds like it's going to be like a programming class or something. But I guess I was thinking like crack the code on motherhood.
Yeah,
And
I got it.
it starts with this. It starts with nourishing yourself. Because honestly, if you're depleted, mama, like how are you going to care for your family? They're going to get on every last nerve. And I know how challenging it is. Like I said, I have 4 kids in 5 years. My womb was like an accordion, in and out and in and out. It was crazy. And so it was a very busy time. And so I started thinking, how can I hold the hand of the mom who's holding the hand of the little one? How can I encourage her? I'm a grandmother now. So I was like, let me be there. So the mother code is just a way to establish new rhythms. I know moms don't need one more thing to do. And probably calling a course is too big of a word, because a course sounds like you're going to be sitting in a university classroom for, so many hours a week. It's really 6 little units of about 45 minutes each max that lead people to ancestral rhythms that they can start to incorporate in their lives. And the testimonials I've gotten back are fabulous. People's energy shoots through the roof, just taking on one. But these are the 6. I'll tell you real quick. The first is sunshine. And I will say, like I said, sunrise before screenrise, do your best to get out in that early morning sun, even if it's just 10 or 15 minutes. Take some breaks when possible with your kiddos during the day, because that really helps your own cortisol level go down. And every spectrum of the sunlight, even the UVA and UVB light, is important for vitamin D synthesis and for other functions that we can't quite name or put our finger on. So I'm really big on this. And of course, I've seen it around the world. In Peru, it stands out to me that some little farm children I met in the mountains outside of a town called Aija just had the most beautiful kind of ruddy complexions. And it wasn't because of eczema or acne. It was because they spent sufficient time in the sunlight. And I couldn't help but contrast that with kids I saw at the university who were like pale and hunched over. And I was like, oh my gosh, like who's being more nourished right now? It's not the kid in the library under the fluorescent lights and in front of their laptop. And this can be moms too, right? So sunrise before screenrise is number 1. Get that sun. And it is your kind of like your fire, your inner fire, what you can get from the sun. And number 2 is sleep. I call that mom's natural detox, because I used to think you had to do like a coffee enema or a green smoothie or something to get everything out of your system.
Yeah.
But sleep is the way that the body takes out the trash. I always thought there was just a lymphatic system. Turns out there's a glymphatic system, meaning that your brain also has a way of getting rid of the cellular debris. And if you don't get sufficient sleep, mama, no wonder you have trouble remembering things the next day, or your kids are getting on your last nerve. You have too much trash accumulated kind of in your brain and in your body. So sleep really matters. And I know that it's hard, especially when you're in baby boot camp and your baby is like an infant and waking up all the time. I get that. But do the best you can to set yourself up for success. And of course, around the world, once the sun goes down, they've got no light source except for maybe a candle or a flame from a fire. So this is where the developing nations have a foothold over us, because we have all this artificial light, and what it's doing is it's making us think it's midday instead of midnight. So I used to stay up. Once my kids got in bed, this was my routine, Lena. I would roll up my sleeves and start doing the wash and answering emails. And I was like, it was go time. It's go time. No, I should have taken a cue from the sunset, but I was going strong because the light was, it was hitting my suprachiasmatic nucleus in my brain. It was changing my body circadian rhythm, and I had more energy. I was getting like a second wind when I should have been winding down. So I was a health coach and I didn't know this stuff. So what I recommend is honoring your sleep by making sure you get the right light information at night. I wear blue blockers after sunset, and make your room as dark as possible. Like simple things that can set you up for success. Even if the baby is right beside you or waking you up to nurse or whatever, do the best you can. And I will say this too. I've learned recently that sleep isn't just necessarily around the world monophasic, meaning it's got to be 8 hours solid. I think sometimes as moms, we should on ourselves I should be getting more sleep, but I can't help it because the kids are waking up. Sometimes it's polyphasic. It's you sleep for a few hours and then you wake up and you knit or you sew and then you go back to sleep. If you look at ancient writings, this is how some people did it. So don't feel like it's got to be this one way. Just notice how your body feels. And when you're tired, pay attention, because that's a signal too. But so we've got the sun, sleep, shivers, which to me means experience the elements and feel free to get cold. I used to always bundle up every winter and kind of grit my teeth against it. And then I realized, oh my gosh, the cold is a tool. The
Mm.
cold, even in places like Ecuador and Peru, people are jumping in waterfalls. Even in warm parts of the world, they use the cold to cleanse themselves, but also to stimulate their mitochondria. They don't even realize all the benefits it's giving them, the
Yeah.
negative ions that are good for their brain function and their health, but also it's very stimulating internally. It helps your cognitive function. It lengthens your telomeres so you live longer. Like the cold can be your friend. So I feel like really actually experiencing the elements, it's like a fountain of youth. Like I love
Mhm.
shivers so much. And then there's only just a few more, but so it's sun, sleep, shivers, sustenance, which we've talked about. And I always say get your fat straight and also become a qualitarian, meaning
Mm.
choose quality over quantity. As a young mom on a budget, I remember like getting whatever's on sale, but I've come to learn that what is cheap can be expensive in the long run. So I'd
Mhm.
rather invest in my food at the front end rather than, like I said earlier, paying the doctor on the back end. So become a qualitarian. And then the fifth one is strength. So, mamas, you know this, but you've got to stay strong physically because it helps your mental and emotional resilience as well. Like, if I don't
Mhm.
work out on any given day, I feel discouraged and like a blob, you know? And I know that can happen when you have little ones all around you too, but you can do 10 minutes of walking, right? Or 10 minutes of a little resistance training. So I've interviewed Dr. Gabrielle Lyon on Wise Traditions, and she said, like, actually, it's a longevity marker. Like, you want to stay strong. My father is 94 and he
Oh,
can still do pull ups.
see.
Okay. So I know, I know what's possible. And
Wow.
I know he impresses me so much. He's actually still working on this flip. He used to be able to do a flip. He can't do the flip as well anymore. But I'm like, that's okay, Dad. You can still do pull-ups. He is my hero. So it is just like languages. With languages, my father is also a translator, and I used to be too. So with Spanish and French, I would always say, use it or lose it, right? If you don't practice your
Right.
French, it becomes comme ci, comme ça, you know? So it's the same with muscles. We got to keep our strength up for our family's sake. And
Mhm.
the last but not least, actually, of the 6 secrets or habits that I like to share. And I'm just giving you the broad overview because there's more
Mhm.
technical stuff and more tips for actually inviting your family in to kind of
Amazing.
establish these new rhythms. But the last one is one of my favorites, and it's spirit. It's
Mm.
because I say, what good is it if you have an organic meal in front of you and you've worked out that day, if there's tension in your heart or anxiety or you're discouraged or depressed? Like, we have to do what makes our souls shine. So I
Yes.
recommend that moms find, yes, local community or faith, you know, church, people around them that like lift them up, or even hobbies of dancing or playing guitar, whatever it is, something so that you can kind of release the stress and embrace the vision for what's possible. And because your kids are watching you, and it's not a matter of just gritting your teeth and getting through life, but enjoying the journey. And I have
Mhm.
one quick story to tell about this. So when I was in Ecuador in 2021, I met a community of Quechua people, and they said, Hilda, in 2020, we got hit by COVID too. And they
Mm.
said, what we did was the women said we gathered some medicinal plants and herbs and we took them to every household that was affected in our community. And they said no one was hospitalized and no
Amazing.
one died. And I said, can I see the list of medicinal
Right.
plants and herbs? Because I was like, I want to know. They never gave it to me. But then, Lena, I figured this out. It wasn't just what they gave them, it was the context in which it was
Yes.
given. It was the context
Mhm.
of love and support. So
Mm.
I'm talking to any type A mama out there who's like me, like, leave the dishes in the sink. If your kid is crying, leave that last dish. You can get to it later, but
Yeah.
give them a hug and get
Mhm.
outside. Do things that nurture all of you. The laundry is always going to be there. Trust me. The dishes are always going to need cleaning. It's like a never ending cycle, but you have to do things that speak to your spirit. And one small thing that I do recommend, in my little course is just even having a gratitude jar in the kitchen that walking
Oh,
by, your
wow.
kids of different ages can write down something they're thankful for, toss it in the jar, and then on Sunday, you know, pull it out and everyone just reads the things you're thankful for. Because you can lose sight of those things in the minutia of life, right? Like, oh
Mhm.
my gosh, today was such a struggle. But then you remember, even read them at dinner time. But then you remember, oh my gosh, yeah, we saw a little bunny this morning. I literally saw a bunny in the park recently. And it's like,
Aw.
oh yeah, you know, so like, yeah, life is challenging as a mom. And I will say, I really think that healthy ancestral rhythms are a key because you don't need a prescription or a physician or a
Yeah.
program or a new product or hyperbaric chamber to help your body heal. It really can be found in
Mhm.
ancient rhythms for your health and for your family's health.
Yes. And this is it's I don't want to say easy,
but it's not complicated because I feel like we have made health so complicated with all the big gadgets and all the supplements and everything we need to get and have. And it doesn't have to be like that. It could be the simple things like you have mentioned. I love it so much, Hilda. I'm so glad you created this.
Oh my gosh, you're welcome. Yeah, I'm really, really happy about it. And like I said, I'm writing a book that's going to be
Yes,
like
tell
a
me about that.
companion to the course because I just do feel like we've overcomplicated it and it gets overwhelming. Did you see the thing
Yes.
online recently? They're like, don't put don't put bananas in your smoothies because
Yeah.
it has, some polyphenol detractor thing and
Oh my
oxide. And I was
God.
like, what the heck? Like,
I
listen to
know.
your intuition, mama, and look back for good health. Don't look to the, 20 somethings that are just, trying to say something to get some clicks.
Right, for sure. And probably at the end of that reel or whatever was a commercial for a pancake mix or something, whatever it was, right? Like, you don't need to use bananas. You can have this because that's a lot of that information out there is, first of all, AI created. And second of all, meant to make us scared because when we're scared, we can be controlled and we can buy things and we can do things they want us to do. And it's just so important to use your intuition and just go back to the ancient ways. I mean, it is just right there for us to reach out to. It's amazing. You know,
Yes. One thing you're making me think about is how easy it is to let fear creep in, right? Or, discouragement because social media, brings it all like, oh my gosh, that mom looks so hot. And she's only that many weeks postpartum. You're like, what the heck? I don't measure up. It's just so easy to fall into that. Or you find out about, more data centers cropping up and how they're using all this water and they're getting all this information. It's like perfect love casts out fear. So that's why the
mhm.
spirit piece is especially important, I think, to look for things that remind you that yeah, life is good and that you are loved. And then that is something that you would let bubble up in your own life and pour out to your family as opposed to letting the discouragement and the comparison trap get to you.
Yes, yes. And it's easy to get sucked into it, but it's good to have these little reminders. And there's so many ways also to disconnect from that and just be more connected. And I mean, I want to talk about a gadget here for a second, but then, just being outside in the sun naturally calms you down and brings you back to these lessons, I feel like. Every time, like when I prep to do a podcast or when I was prepping for this interview, I was listening to different podcasts you were doing and just looking into you. And I wanted to write down all the questions. And every time I wanted to do that, I went on a walk because that's when I get the most clarity. This is when I have the best ideas. And I just go on my little phone and I type up all my questions. And that's how I prep because when I'm here in my room and I want to sit down and create a list of questions, it's just a jumble. Like it's
Yes.
not great. It's, like I feel like we do our best work when we connect in this way.
Absolutely. Yeah, and you're really encouraging me as I'm finishing up my book. I'm like, I want to write outside more. The problem in my backyard is there's lots of mosquitoes, so I have to
Oh,
get
that's
the fan rolling or something. But I do my best to like get outside, sit on a little stability ball and and
yeah.
pump things out. So and I know it's good to pay attention. I really like what you brought up, Lena, because it's good to pay attention to our environment. We might not
Yeah.
realize, oh my gosh, I haven't been outside that much today, or whatever it is,
Yeah.
and how these things could be weighing on us and on our kids
Right.
too. We think,
Mm,
oh, they're just having a meltdown. There goes my kid again. There's another meltdown. But it's like, pay attention. What has he eaten so far today?
mhm.
What has his environment been like? Because sometimes there's undercurrents, in their life, but in our own too. Like, oh, we got that text that
Mhm.
set us off and we didn't realize it. Now we're reacting to our kids instead of acting in love. So much to pay attention to. But that's why the be still part of the Didiri really matters to me too. What I try to do
Yeah.
is I bookend my day with I start off screens and I end off screens and I do a morning walk like you were suggesting and I pray and I think and I ruminate on things to help me how can I put it? Yeah, like start my day on my terms instead of getting bombarded. Like if you don't do sunrise before screen rise, if you just pick up your phone first thing because you turn off the alarm and start
Mhm.
scrolling, like you're letting the world kind of dictate, your
Yeah.
mood and stuff. But what if you started on your own terms with
Mhm.
gratitude, with a walk, with sunshine, with bunnies, and then you end it in the same way where you're like off screen so you're available for your partner and your kids, whatever they need. And it's okay if you get sleepy reading the kids a book because the sun has gone down and maybe you should just go to bed soon too. It's just
Yeah.
it's a different kind of rhythm than what the world does. But I think generally speaking, it's ancient and it's likely to be more
Mhm.
healing.
Oh, 100%. And it's okay to be the only one out there without AirPods and sunglasses. Because sometimes I see people out in the morning and they have AirPods in and sunglasses. I'm like, so close. Like, my guys, you're so close.
That's so funny. You could whisper, they wouldn't hear you anyway. So close.
I know, right? I'm just I'm so always tempted to say something, but I'm gonna be the crazy person like talking about that. But I think soon enough, this is going to be just common knowledge.
Yes. And
Yeah,
I don't know if you noticed with the World Cup players, I saw
yeah,
Paul Saladino where someone commented that a lot of
uh,
them had wired headphones instead of
yeah,
AirPods. And it's like they've gotten the memo. Someone's told them like those things can fry
mhm,
your brain, like you're just putting the
yeah,
radiation straight there. And the other thing I
right.
would say to mamas too, if you're worried about your teen, because they're starting to get into gaming or whatever devices, like I always say this, and I think it's really true, more is caught than taught. So what
Mhm,
you model, and even you, Lena, on your walk, what you
mhm.
model is a different way of living that they might not even realize. Like they
Yeah.
might not even notice you actually because they're so consumed with whatever they're listening to. But hopefully if they
Mhm.
did, and if your kiddos noticed, then they'd be like, oh yeah, like you're showing them what's possible. And that's a beautiful thing. And then that could lead to curiosity and then maybe some change in their own lives.
Yeah, I really agree with you. I think it's our kids learn the most from modeling. So if there's something you want them to learn or maybe a behavior you want them to change, you should do it first, right? Because sometimes we get caught up and we're the ones who don't eat all the meat, or we're the ones who are picky at the table, but then we're expecting our kids to eat anything we want them to eat. And unfortunately, sometimes we just have to look back and be the biggest model for them. Um,
Absolutely, absolutely. And going back to what my friend Corey was saying, just to wrap that part up, she said
yeah.
that it's your responsibility as the mom to put the food on the table. It's their responsibility to choose what to eat. So
Yes.
again, to avoid the bucking heads, it might be
Mhm.
smart, like I said, to make sure there's something on the table that they will eat, but never to force it because you don't want to be forced to eat something, right?
No, especially if it doesn't feel safe to their body right now, right? Because it's so dysregulated.
Mhm.
There's a reason why they're not eating, and it's not behavioral. That's just
Right.
their way of protecting themselves. We have to look within to see what's really causing it.
Oh,
Um, so I couldn't
interesting.
agree more. Yeah, yes. It's picky eating is often labeled as behavioral, and it's something that kids pick up or they start to do, but that's only the tip of an iceberg. You have to look at what's underneath the water. You have to look at their health, their nutritional deficiencies. You have to look at their microbiome. There's so many different areas you have to look at. Their oral motor skills. Like so many kids, like you've mentioned, now have underdeveloped jaws, and they're might not have the strength to chew a steak, or they might not have the strength to break down the food, a whole food fully. So there's a lot of things to consider there: breathing, airway issues. So there's a reason
Mhm.
for it, Mama. So it's just important to keep that in mind because our kids never want to be bad. They don't want to be, make us upset. They're just
Right.
these cute, perfect little creatures that are going through life and learning and innately knowing how to protect themselves because when something doesn't feel right, they're just not going to eat it.
Oh, I like that. I really like that
Yeah.
perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah, and your job as a mom is, again, to model and to offer
Yeah,
and to gently guide, yeah, in the right direction. And,
exactly.
yeah, you might be surprised what happens next.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I just wanted to ask you one more thing about the communities, the traditional communities, because I know you've mentioned you've traveled with Mary Ruddick, and we know she's been to so many places as well. So, what is kind of like the most memorable or surprising experience you guys have experienced? Or maybe it wasn't with travels with her, but what is kind of
Oh,
something that stands out?
oh my goodness. There's so many stories. I am thinking with Mary because it was just so delightful to be with her. I'm thinking when we were in Ethiopia, she's the one I went to Ethiopia with in 2023, but then also to Mongolia. Oh, what should I pick? Um, I would say it was what we experienced in Mongolia. It was the hospitality. Like I
Oh,
was saying earlier, it's an inhospitable environment, but the
mhm,
Mongolian people, especially those that live in the gurs or the yurts, so they're not in the
mhm,
capital city of Ulaanbaatar. They're located all over the place in these very distant yurts or gurs, which are these round homes, almost tent-like structures that are mobile. What they
Mm-hmm.
do is when they leave their home, they actually leave it open. So if anyone is traveling, they can stop in and serve themselves some food. Like it's that
Oh my
kind of
gosh.
hospitality. Can you imagine? I'm like,
See,
wow. And so that to me spoke volumes about their open arm policy.
yeah.
And it was something that, I would like to imitate. But now in our day and age, people won't call you, let alone text to say, hey, can I come by? Like it doesn't happen much. But looking for ways to be hospitable with our neighbors,
Mhm.
yeah, with our friends and family like that, it just modeled a lot to me. And I want to keep that in my heart because I think it's really important to
Oh yeah.
have that attitude. It was a beautiful thing.
I love that. It's a great reminder about how much we need our village and people we
Yes.
can rely on and have within our community that we can go to if, in case we need to. Because we used to have that, right? And especially as
Yes.
moms, it is so important for moms to have that when we're raising kids, going through, the stresses of the day because it's a lot on us. Because all of a sudden you have this amazing little creature you have created and you're no longer just yourself. Now it's both of you. I think
Yes.
it's a very different experience for moms than for dads, right? Because
Ah,
I still remember when I gave birth to my son. I mean, it was such a surreal experience for me. I felt like I was disassociated almost. Like it felt like a movie was playing out or something. And then you have all these expectations. All of a sudden, you have to nurse and you have to take care of them and you're no longer taking care of you. So having like this kind of a community around
yes.
you that's so welcoming and loving and there for you no matter what, and this is even for strangers. I mean, it just speaks volume about what's needed in our life.
Absolutely, and I really like that you said that you're right, moms feel isolated. It's a
Mhm,
challenging time. I don't think we were meant to live in these isolated little pods that we live in the
mhm.
United States. Where I've gone, moms have each other. There's also intergenerational living a lot of times, so the grandmother's right there, the aunt's right there. Someone just reached out to me recently and said, "Hilda, I don't have a village of any kind. What am I supposed to do?"
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
I think it is challenging in this day and age. I have
Yes.
heard, though, that the very technology that I sometimes slam because I'm like, who needs AI? I have ancestral intelligence, which is true. Um, but there's a place for it. There are apps where you can find meetups with other moms and start to form that community. So you can tell another mom, hey, I'm really feeling dragged down today. Can we meet at the zoo or at the park or something? And again, getting outside, having that human connection, not even just a virtual phone call, but an in person connection that really makes a difference. So,
It
yes,
does.
we might be the one crying out for help, or someone else might be crying out to us, but we need each other in more ways than we may ever realize. And it
Yeah.
probably especially hits home when we're home with the little ones all by ourselves.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It does. Cause that's when you kind of realize, like, I've been taking care of myself my whole life and I've got this. It's okay. But now, oh my gosh, what do I do now? Yeah,
Yeah.
it can be a challenging time for some moms for sure. Um, but Hilda, what gives you hope?
Well, I do. I really believe in God. I felt like He spared my life in the womb and
Mm,
then protected me and saved me through the surgeon's skill. So it has to be something beyond my own kind of
yeah.
conjuring up a positive attitude. For me, like my life is anchored in faith. And that also helps me when I hear some of the doomsday predictions about AI data centers are going to, use up all our water or whatever. I'm like, no, 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 no. This world is very resilient and our bodies are resilient. And I believe that because of what I've been through and also that my faith has borne that out. So I cling to a lot of verses from the Bible. And I actually also I recommend this for anyone, whether they have a particular faith or not. I repeat affirmations, based on truths of who I want to be and how I want to live. Things like I wish the best for myself and others, or the world is transformed by God's love and light. And I hold on to these things and I repeat them often. I guess some people might call it a mantra, but I just think it's kind of like anchoring myself in an unsteady world on a
Yeah.
daily basis. Just like I repeat the
Mhm.
Lord's Prayer, I repeat Psalm 23. Like there are things that I just hold on to as reminders. And there is a verse I wanted to share that says, stand at the crossroads and look, ask for the ancient path. Ask where the good way is and walk in it, and you will
Mm.
find rest for your souls. And so
Oh,
I've kind of taken that to be my life motto in a way. And so that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm asking, I'm seeking. I'm not just trying to figure it out on my own. I'm
mhm.
trusting that God is overseeing what I'm doing and leading me in community, in family, and all the ways in which I need to show up in love and light in this world.
And that it's so important to remember sometimes in this day and age, I think. And I think being connected to the source, to God, it just gives us sense of purpose. And just also hope, but also feeling of connectedness. And we can learn so much by having this connection, because I think when we go out in the morning and we are able to quiet ourselves, that is the perfect time to listen and to learn and to connect and just it, I don't know. I feel the same way as you, Hilda. I think faith is one of our biggest strengths as well in life.
Hmm.
One of our
Hmm.
biggest supports.
It's
And I don't know what I would do without it. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's like a safety net. Yeah, if it was just
Yeah.
us, temporarily passing through this life, it would
Yeah.
feel very meaningless to me. But knowing
Yeah.
that I'm here on purpose at
Mhm.
exactly the time I'm supposed to be for a reason, and even when it felt some years like I was like, oh my gosh, I'm, wiping so many orifices on my kids, like I was wiping bottoms and wiping noses and, faces. And I was like, no one's going to remember this. And then I thought, oh, I'm learning resilience and patience. Like God is using this as like I'm a little rock in a gemstone tumbler. Like he's
Mm,
using this to make me more who I'm supposed to be. So
right.
motherhood, if I dare say, Lena, isn't just the process of as some moms think like, oh no, I've lost who I am. No, you're more you than ever before. That's how I see it.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I think becoming a mom creates, I don't know, almost fulfills a person's destiny sometimes. I was a very different person before I became a mom. And I know it's not for everyone and not everybody is meant to have babies, but there's something about it, about the connection with your child. There's just nothing else like it
It's
in this
so
world.
amazing, and I will give hope to anyone who has a lot of little mouths and bottoms to wipe, as I was saying, that as your kids get older, my experience has been they become some of your best friends. Like,
Yeah.
I learned so much from them and hopefully vice versa. Like, we share so much in common, we laugh at the same jokes. It's like, wow, this is so cool that we can confide in each other, and they
Yeah.
shed light on my frailties and things I need to grow in and in beautiful, beautiful ways. So it's like, wow, you
Mhm.
go from tying their shoes to having this tie of love. It's just beautiful, absolutely
It
beautiful.
really is. Aw. Okay, well, if you could leave parents with just one piece of wisdom that could truly change the trajectory of their family's health, what would it be?
Well, this is actually something I learned from a friend of mine. I think it's really important to pick what your values are as a family. Talk with your partner, talk with your spouse, sit down and think what really matters to us. Who do we want to show up and be in this life? And
Mm,
then put them on a wall or put them in a place where you can see them every day. Kind of like these are our family values. Like it doesn't have to be more than like 5 or 6 sentences. I get this might sound kind of funny and you might be like, why is this coming out of left field? But I just think like, what are we going to hold on to? You were saying, for me, my faith is an anchor. But if you have nothing else, like have some kind of plumb line or compass that will help your family know, oh, we forgive each other quickly. We shine love and light wherever we go, like whatever the thing is going to be. But pick some values and hold on to them and then communicate on them to your family and however you're going to do. But I just think it's really smart because what you speak and what you take in is also part of your diet. It's not just
mm,
the food that you're eating, it's the context in which it's given, like I said earlier. So do your best to speak life and love and to hold the values high that matter to your family so that when the storms of life hit, you're ready to roll. For me, a lot of those anchoring thoughts were, like I said, from the Bible, but you can grab onto something like we show gratitude and then you'll remember and your kids will remember, oh yeah, we show gratitude. That's who we are. That's what we do. And I would think that would
mm.
help direct you in the craziness of life.
Yes, that's so powerful. Thank you. And I love that of the idea of having it on your wall and of the gratitude jar. I'm going to do all of that in my house. We're doing that this
Yay!
weekend. I love it.
Yeah, and I have a friend that wrote them on a sheet and put them on her dining room wall like that, but we had a
Yeah.
blackboard in our kitchen, we still do, and you can just write them on there.
Oh, that's such a good idea.
Yeah.
Well, Hilda, thank you so much for coming on the show. If anybody wanted to connect with you online or work with you, where can they find you?
They can go to my website, holistichilda.com. They'll find out more about the Cracking the Mother Code course with the rhythms and stuff. And when they sign up for a certain level, they can get calls with me. Like, I just love my calling really is encouragement. I just want to encourage that mama who's like, oh my gosh, I'm at my wit's end. I don't know what to do. We'll talk about how to find margins in your life and enter into these ancient rhythms. I'm also on Instagram as Holistic Hilda, and I've got a YouTube channel too, Holistic Hilda. Oh, Substack too.
Oh my gosh, you do a lot. That's amazing. That's great. Well, I'm going to make sure to include all of that in our show notes. Thank you so much for coming on the show today, Hilda. This was an incredible and enriching conversation.
It's absolutely been my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. I truly love having these conversations because every episode reminds me that when we understand our children a little better, we can parent with a little more confidence, a little more compassion, and a lot more hope. If you enjoyed today's episode, please take a minute to leave a 5-star review. It only takes a moment, but it makes a huge difference in helping other parents discover our show. And if someone came to mind while you were listening, share this episode with them. You never know when it might be exactly what another family needs to hear. If you'd like to learn more about my work, grab my free resources, or explore ways we can work together, visit me at linalivinsky.com. Until next time, and remember, Mama, picky eating is often a symptom, not a diagnosis. Stay curious, trust your gut, and keep looking beyond the plate. I'll see you in the next episode.